Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Mattis, I had recent occasion to visit with some of my constituents who had been serving in this theater when they returned home at Walter Reed, and I promised that I would share with you their complete confidence in the President and their complete confidence in your leadership of the Department of Defense. They were injured in a green-on-blue circumstance in which they were attempting to give training advice and assistance to the Afghan forces. Can you speak to any new strategy that we have, any new tactics that we have to ensure that folks who are there rendering assistance on how to perform the mission don't then put themselves in an unnecessarily vulnerable situation?
Yeah, this is probably one of the most difficult aspects of this war. We all recognize that treachery has been part of warfare since the beginning of time. But this aspect is especially difficult for us to understand or to embrace, and it certainly undercuts the sense of commitment if this is what's going to happen. So let's get down to what are we doing about it. There is a very invasive counterintelligence program in which we vet the people that we are going to be training. Numerous people have been dismissed from the service, from the Afghan service because of it. We also maintain a guardian program where you have guards on our people who are giving classes in the event the counterintelligence program, like all of them, can't be perfect. We assume that. We also have a very strong support element there in the Afghan government. They recognize that nothing is more corrosive to the support of the American and the democratic people from Europe and other democracies that are part of our 39 nations than this sort of treachery. So it's got our attention. The Taliban continue to try to infiltrate their way into the Afghan units, and we've been relatively successful at stopping them. But, Chairman, if there's anything I've not answered here, go ahead, please.
Congressman, the only thing I'd say is we had a very high incidence of these in 2012 and 2013. In fact, to the point where I think it's fair to say it threatened the campaign. And the measures that Secretary Mattis outlined were measures that have now matured over time. The counterintelligence effort, the training of our people to detect changes in behavior of the people that they're training with. But the thing I believe is the most significant that I just reemphasized that Secretary Mattis highlighted is the Afghan leadership owns this problem, and they recognize that. They know that our ability to continue to provide the kind of training and support they need is based on them making sure that our people are secure. So while we provide our own, what the Secretary describes as guardian angels, we also rely on the Afghan forces to create an environment within which we can get our mission done. And in my judgment, the Afghan leaders jumped in, and the reason why we do have some incidents, and one is significant, and the young folks that you have visited up at Walter Reed are suffering the consequences of that. But we have driven the level of these types of incidents down to a very low level, and we should recognize it for what it is. It's an enemy tactic designed to erode our will, and we got to deal with it as such.
Thank you, and I absolutely appreciate the extent to which we've highlighted this as a priority with the Afghan government, because that is where we will likely get the intelligence that we need to minimize this risk. Another area of feedback we've gotten frequently is that the deployment cycles that people are on can create circumstances where someone goes and has a great relationship with a tribal leader, a partner, but then they're out, a new person is in, and that this confidence that you've spoken of throughout your testimony today can be eroded by some of those cycles. Is there any tactical change to that going forward in this new strategy?
We are trying, Congressman, we're trying to bring troops back on repeat tours. Now but that's more of a corporate memory than a personal relationship, and we recognize this challenge. At the same time, we need to keep our troops fresh. It is very wearing, as you know, to be in a combat zone where you keep your guard up all the time. And somehow we have to sustain this, and we have a military that has got a pretty wide portfolio right now in terms of threats around the world. So we're trying to maintain a more veteran approach going back in. We're trying to do the kind of things that mean we're putting people into areas that they understand inherently, even if they don't know that specific village. In some cases, we're able to get that kind of return actually to the same area again, but that is going to be very challenging as we go forward. So it's more how do we train our forces for it, and how do we do the counterintelligence piece that allows for us to be dealing with people who want to work with us.